Join us as we dive into the history, hauntings, and high strangeness of the world to try to better understand the paranormal. I will be your guide. I am paranormal researcher and investigator Eric Freeman Sims. Welcome to the Unseen Paranormal Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Unseen Paranormal. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening to the show. I hope you're enjoying our guest this season. I am having a blast recording these shows. And sorry about last week, no episode last week, but I got a little busy at the Night House. We had a tour bus load of people come to the house and have dinner, and I got to tell them the history and the hauntings of the house, and just had a blast with that. So it was a very busy week last week, and big thank you to Visit Hopkinsville for helping make that happen. And Miss Amy and Miss Jenny are amazing. I look forward to working with them a lot more in the coming months and over the next years. But if you have not checked out the Night House yet, it is a 200-year-old haunted house that me and my husband bought. And we're not only opening it to the paranormal, it is open for history tours as well. I've been diving deep in the history of the house and trying to find out all the fun details of the Knight family and the other families that live there. And it has an extensive history. It was built between 1850 and 1820. And so if you love history or love the paranormal, go check out our website, thenightHouseKY.com. And Night is spelled K-N-I-G-H-T. Or check us out on Facebook. Please give us a follow. And you can also book an overnight or a 3-hour guided ghost tour. And we'll have plenty more events coming in the next couple of months. We're planning on some cool stuff. So keep updated on the website and on the Facebook page. And that's enough of the business. Today, I just want to tell you, what you put out in the world is what you get back. So if you treat people like shit, then you should be treated like shit. And hopefully the universe and karma comes back and treats you like shit and you get what you put out. I very much believe that. And I believe that if you put good things out in the world and you treat people well, yeah, shit will still happen, but more opportunities will open for you. More networking opportunities will open for you. And it's just good to be a good person. So just don't be a cunt today. How about that? You know, do something good for somebody else and let's get out of this headspace of being selfish and self-important and realize there are other people around us that are just as important as we are. And it doesn't mean you're less important. It just means that we need to take care of each other. We're all in this together. I don't give a shit about the election. I don't care who you're voting for. Don't give a shit. We're all in this together. And we have to treat each other with respect and with kindness. If not, shit goes wrong. And so please just do something nice for somebody today. Say something nice to somebody. It takes 2 seconds to smile at somebody and say thank you or please, or 5 seconds to hold a door open for somebody and just be nice. And just put that out in the world. And, it'll come back, I promise you. It will come back to you how you treat people. So anyway, that's my rant for the day. Without any further ado, we have Geraldine Sutton Stith on the show today, talking about the Hopkinsville Kelly Greenman incident. And it was her family, her dad and aunts and uncles and grandmother, and a few other family friends that went through this back in 1955. And she has written several books on the story of what happened in that little country house in Kelly, Kentucky, which is just a little bit outside of Hopkinsville. And these little goblin men, and they were actually silver. They weren't even green, which is funny. I don't know how I got the Kelly Green men, but they were silver. And but she come on today to talk about her books and tell us the story of the Hopkinsville Goblin Incident. And so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey, Geraldine, thank you for joining us on the Unseen Paranormal today.
Well, thank you, Eric, for having me. I appreciate this.
Yeah, I was happy to meet you. Hopkinsville just had a little festival for the 69th anniversary of the Kelly Hopkinsville Goblin Incident, and you had a booth set up there selling your books, and
little kickoff event for next year.
yeah, and y'all used to do one in Kelly, didn't you, every year?
Yes, we did one for I think about 11 years, and then when COVID hit, it just killed it.
Yeah.
And I guess it was a lot of work. It was hard. And I think once COVID hit and we didn't do it for a couple of years, it was like, well, hey, let's quit. So I did quit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a lot. I've put on a Paranormal Expo and helped with several others, and it's a lot to put on a big event like that.
It is. It really, really is. People don't realize what it is to put on something like that. It costs so much money.
Yeah.
So much time. It is.
Yeah, it's one of those things too. You're hoping that, like the Field of Dreams, if you build it, hopefully they will come. You know,
Right,
you don't know. You really
right.
don't know.
You don't. You don't. I mean, it's just a hope and wish game, I guess. But try it and see. I think it'll do really good in Hopkinsville because
Yeah.
Hopkinsville has the money and they can do more than Kelly could.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they have places too where Kelly, we had it outside every year, you know, and that's a darned if you do and darned if you don't thing too because of weather.
Right.
You know, August is always sweltering hot anyway, and then if you got a little rain on top of that, it makes it worse. And
Yeah.
so, you know, that was one of those things where Hopkinsville has a convention center and a sportsplex and all kinds of stuff where they can have it. And
Yeah.
so,
yeah, and we're kind of talking about next year's the 70th anniversary of the incident.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a big, don't know a whole lot of details yet because it's still in the planning phase, but there's going to be a big to-do convention. I believe the name kicked around is Goblin Con.
yes, that's what we're kicking around.
So
We should be starting. I know the director that's doing all of this was wanting to wait till they had SummerSlam done in Hopkinsville, which that was last weekend, so she can get started on this and put all of her effort toward it. So we should be getting together and finally finalizing the name, and we're going to have us a mascot. We got to pick out somebody to do an art thing for us, and we got a lot planned. So yeah, it's going to be nice.
And just let everybody know out there, because a lot of people I found since I bought that 200-year-old house in Hopkinsville, and I found that a lot of people don't know really where Hopkinsville is. So just explain to everybody, it is not far from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, in Tennessee.
Exactly.
And Clarksville, you know.
Right. It's about 10 miles from Fort Campbell, I think. And, you know, Clarksville is just a little bit down the road, you know, Clarksville is, and then Nashville. And so, you know, it's just really all right there together.
Yeah, and only a couple hours from Evansville, Indiana, a couple hours from St. Louis. Yeah,
yes. Yeah, it's not far. I mean, I guess you could say it's centrally located, actually. You know, you got Paducah. Paducah's not that far. So you got all these big cities around Hopkinsville. So
Yeah. And as far, and like Louisville, I think it's only like a 3 or 4 hour drive too. So in Bowling Green's an hour.
It is.
So yeah, it's kind of centrally located.
Yeah, because we live up here in Brandenburg. We live about 45 minutes from Louisville.
Yeah.
And to get to Hopkinsville, it takes 2 hours and 15 minutes from where we live. So actually, it's probably 3 hours to Louisville, you know, from Hopkinsville. So.
Yeah. So everybody be on the lookout for that coming next year for the 70th anniversary. And that's on August, it'll be around August 21st because that's the actual anniversary. So
I think so. We've got to decide a date too. We haven't really decided that because that's a big thing too, because SummerSlam, that was what hurt the Kelly Festival too. SummerSlam was always the weekend of the Kelly Festival in Hopkinsville. So, you know, it kind of did bad. They had a big rodeo and, you know, they really do the SummerSlam up. So I'm going to try to get the director to change that weekend. He may, you know, I'd rather change the weekend and have a weekend open instead of a weekend where we're going to have to compete with something else.
Right. Yeah. And also it's a perfect time of year because football is just getting started. So people aren't that deep into it. I planned my convention on the day that UT played Alabama. And so. Yeah. I won't make that mistake ever again.
Right. You learn by doing.
Yeah. And before we get into the story for people that don't know the story of the Kelly Hopkinsville incident, a lot of people have heard of like Hellier and like Western Kentucky. Of course, you got Mothman right across the river and that type of stuff. And people have heard it because of the documentaries of Hellier and all the high strangeness and weirdness in Western Kentucky. Well, it's all of Kentucky that's weird. And and here lately behind the 200-year-old house, I've learned that Western Kentucky, I'm talking about Eastern Kentucky, sorry, backwards. Eastern Kentucky, everybody knows is weird with Hellier and all that stuff. Western Kentucky is just as weird. And Hopkinsville even has a page called Keep Hopkinsville Weird. That's a group on Facebook. So
right, yes.
And the cool thing is Kentucky kind of leans into it. They have a website called Kentucky After Dark that is all about the haunted places and weird places and stuff. So it's just all of Kentucky, and I don't know if it's the cave system or what, you know, that goes all under Kentucky. But
Exactly.
lots
Yeah.
of weird stuff.
I just wonder too if that's part of it because, that's all Kentucky is caves. We all
Yeah.
live on a cave,
Yeah.
So is it? We don't know.
Yeah, with Mammoth Cave System being the largest in the world, and they haven't even explored a portion of it, a fraction of it. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
And you got the Beast at LBL.
Right, just
If
right
you
down
ever
the
heard
road.
of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right down the road, So, yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, Land Between the Lakes is just weird in general. Not just the Dogman stuff, but Bigfoot and Ghost and all kind of weird stuff. Just because the land with people being kicked out and things like that. But
oh yeah.
So everybody out there who's never heard of the, it's got many names. I just call it the Kelly Hopkinsville Incident, or the Goblin Incident. And this happened to your family. You were not born yet when this happened. It happened in the 50s. And a lot of people say the heyday of UFOs because a few years before you had Roswell kind of kicked up and then some other UFO sightings and stuff. So what actually happened to your family on that day?
Okay, of course, it was Kelly, Kentucky, and it was in August 21st, and it was 1955. And my grandmother, Miss Glennie Langford, had a small, like a 27-acre farm that her and her husband had, and she was a widow. He had passed, but she had 3 small children who were 12, 10, and 7 at the time. Also staying with her on the farm was my Uncle J.C. and Aunt Eileen. And every once in a while, O.P. Baker, who was Eileen's brother, would stay there with them. And this weekend that the occurrence happened, it just so happens my dad and his wife at the time, Vera, and their friends, Billy Ray and June Taylor, had come in for the weekend. They were stationed in Evansville. My dad and Billy Ray worked with the carnival. He'd worked with the carnival for years and years. And since they were so close to home, they decided to come in and, visit his mom and just have some good old home cooking for the weekend. I'm sure carnival food got old after a while.
Right.
And so anyway, they came in for the weekend. And so they'd been there a couple of days. And so we go to Sunday evening when this occurred. And what happened was Billy Ray went out to the well to get water. They didn't have plumbing in the house. So he went out there to get some cold water. Like I said, it was a hot August. And as he's out there, he hears something odd. He looks to where this noise is coming from and looks up in the sky, and there's this silver object with all the colors of the rainbow flowing behind it. He didn't know what it was. It scared him. He ran into the house, slammed the door behind him. Everybody looks at him and, what's wrong with you? And he tells them, I just saw something. I don't know what it is, but there's something out here. And they just told him, well, it could have been anything. And my grandmother, Miss Glennie, told him, said, listen, maybe it was a shooting star. And he told her, no, I know what those look like. I've seen those. And she said, well, we've been having meteor showers all month. Maybe that's what it was. No, he said, I know, I've seen those too. It was neither of those. So he kept on, and finally my dad got aggravated with him and told him, said, let's go back out here, and you tell me again what you saw. So they go out to the well. He points toward the sky where he's seen it, and he tells him again. My dad tries to reason with him again about the shooting star and the meteor shower. No, I know what those look like. It was none of those. And my dad tells him, Billy Ray, well, there's nothing out here. Let's go back in the house, enjoy our last evening of being here. We got to go back to work tomorrow. So as they're heading toward the house, of course, the old hound dog comes running by them with his tail tucked and ears down and runs under the house. Well, my dad thought nothing of it. He thought, well, he'd done got out here and got in trouble somehow, and so just kept on walking toward the house. And lo and behold, out from back toward the woods comes this little being. He's about 3.5 foot tall. He has huge glowing eyes, a big round head, huge ears, arms almost touching the ground, and he's floating on top of the ground. Well, they don't know what this is. They go running in the house, slam the door behind them. Everybody stops what they're doing, looks at them, and says, "What is wrong with you two?" Of course, they're telling them there's something out here. We just saw something.
Yeah.
Of course, their thinking is, well, Billy Ray done got lucky, which that was my dad's nickname, Lucky. Done got lucky out there to go along with this little scheme to try to scare the girls, because these were all young people. Billy Ray's wife was either 18 or 19 years old. These were people in their 20s. And so that was their first thought. And they just kept on. And my grandmother told them, says, "Listen, you two, I got to get these 3 kids to bed, and you two aren't helping any." And my dad told her, says, "Mom, there's something out here. We saw it."
Yeah.
And she knew it was really getting serious when one grabbed the rifle and one grabbed the shotgun. One went to the front door and one went to the back. And she thought, okay. So she decides to go to the back door where Billy Ray is. So she steps out there and squats down beside him, and she says, "Billy Ray, what exactly did you see?" And he told her, he says, "Miss Glennie, I don't know what it was, but I hope it's something that you never see." And so she said, "Well, okay." So they sat there in silence, and they could hear them in the house talking and carrying on. And it's not long before there comes one around the corner of the house where my grandmother was sitting. She screams. She must have screamed pretty loud, because everybody came running to see what was going on. And I helped her up off the floor, and she said, "I saw it. There is something out here. I just saw it." About that time, a shot rang out in the front of the house, and they go running to the front where my Uncle JC had just shot one through the window. So Billy Ray goes running out the front door, and as he's standing there, there's this little stoop over the front door, and this hand with these big claws, talons on it, reaches down and tries to grab his hair. Well, my Aunt Eileen grabs him and yanks him back in the house. Well, my dad runs out the front door, points toward where the hand came from, and there it sat. He shoots it. It rolls and floats away. Somebody screams, "There's one in the tree." He turns around, because they had these huge maple trees in the front yard, and there sat one on a big limb. He shoots it. It floats to the ground, rolls away. By the time it's all said and done, they're shooting them away from the windows. They're trying to keep them away from the doors. They shoot them off the back fence. I mean, they're just everywhere.
Yeah.
And they're not killing these things. They're getting up and coming back. What are they going to do? Well, the kids are hysterical. The women are crying. June, Billy Ray's wife's about to just completely lose it. And my dad tells them, says, "Listen, we're going to go to Hopkinsville and we're going to get help." He says, "Just try to get quiet, try to settle down. It'll be all right. We'll get help." So they're all sitting there, and he's, trying to calm them down. All of a sudden, they hear this thing going across the tin roof. They can hear little, like, metal nails going across the roof. And so this really sends everybody into hysteria. My dad tries to calm them down again, and he says, "Listen, we're going to get out of here. Just hold on." So they wait. It gets silent again. They're not coming up to the doors and windows. So he says, "Let's go." So they hit the trucks, and they head to Hopkinsville, which Hopkinsville's at the time was about 7 miles from Hopkinsville. It's spread out now. It's a little closer. But so they head to Hopkinsville. They run into the police department in the middle of the night, and you've got one little officer on duty. This is 1955. You didn't have a horde of them back then.
Yeah.
And here you've got 11 people from the age of 7 to 50 running into the police station in the middle of the night. He's trying to understand what's going on, and they're all trying to tell him what just happened. And he's like, "You're trying to tell me there's little men attacking your farm?" And my dad told him, says, "You're not listening. You're not understanding what we're trying to tell you." And he says, "Okay, just calm down. I know what to do." So he gets on the phone, and he calls the chief. He calls Chief Russell Greenwell. The chief tells him, says, "Listen, just try to settle them down. I'll be right there. In the process, also, call Fort Campbell Army Base. Call the paper, the radio, just whoever you can get. some more police officers, just get everybody out there. He says, we're going to Kelly. So they get everybody together, and by the time it's all said, you've got this caravan of vehicles going out to Itsy Bitsy Kelly in the middle of the night. Now, at the time, Kelly was a population of maybe 50, maybe. Yeah. And these were all sparse little farms situated out there. So anyway, it's dark. They pull up at the house. I mean, it's pitch black dark. They don't have lights out there. It feels funny. It feels eerie. They get out and start looking around. Something happened because there's shotgun and rifle shells all over the ground outside. Shotgun and rifle shells all inside the house. Woodwork's been shot up. Holes through the screens. Something's happened to this family. But what? Because they couldn't find anything. The only thing they saw is when they pulled up, the car with some of the officers in it saw a glowing substance on the back fence where they had shot one. Of course, they ran to it first thing, and when they'd go up to it, you couldn't see it anymore. The only time you could see the substance is if you backed away from it. So that was kind of odd, but that's the only thing they could find. So the chief went to my grandmother and says, Miss Glennie, I am so sorry, but there's nothing here. We can't do anything.
Yeah.
And so they all leave. My grandmother tries to get the kids to bed. She finally does and gets them settled down. She goes to her bed and lies down. And my dad is sitting beside her in the rocking chair with shotgun across his lap. I mean, they're physically and mentally exhausted by now. And she's laying there in bed, and she opens her eyes, and lo and behold, she sees one in the window again. And she's thinking, I'm just tired. So she closes her eyes back. She opens it the second time, and sure enough, the little sucker is still standing there. And the third time she does it, she screams at my dad that they're back. He gets up, and they start shooting again. And this goes on till daylight. When the sun comes up, they leave. And the only thing they can figure is the light must have hurt their eyes because the eyes were so big. And that's the only thing they could figure. So the sun was their saving grace. My dad sat everybody down, and he told them, he says, listen, nothing good can come of this. He says, I heard them last night. They were laughing at us.
Yeah.
So just forget this ever happened. Let's just go on with our lives and just forget it. So anyway, the men take off to town to do something real quick, and the women stay there. And while the men are gone, of course, we got the invasion of the people coming now. People are coming from everywhere because word has gotten out that something was in Kelly the night before. So you had people camping out in their yard. You had people walking through their house, taking things, walking in their yard, taking souvenirs. And it was just terrible. And my grandmother told my dad when he got back, he says, they're just taking everything we've got. He says, what are we going to do? So my dad talked to one of the police officers and told him what was going on, and they came and ran them off. But as soon as the police were gone, the people would just come right back. Well, my dad, Billy Ray, and the girls had to go back to work. They had to leave. So my grandmother was left there, with 3 kids and my Uncle J.C. and Aunt Eileen. Old P. Baker was there every once in a while. But if these things came back, could they handle it?
Right.
She was scared. She didn't know what to do. The only thing she could figure was just sell the farm and get the heck out. And that's what she did. She sold the farm within 2 weeks, moved her and the kids to Hopkinsville to an apartment complex.
Wow.
So did JC and Eileen. And the family that bought the house was family members. And the kids, they're older now, of course, because it's been almost 70 years, but they would tell you that they didn't want to move to that house. They were scared to death. Everybody in Kelly was scared.
Yeah.
My mama and her first husband actually lived in Kelly also, and they had 7 kids. And she said they were scared to death because nobody knew what these things were, and they believed the family wholeheartedly because, well, number one, my grandmother was a pillar of the community. She was a church-going, God-fearing woman, and she wouldn't lie if her life depended on it.
Yeah.
And so people believed her. They believed the family. And So yeah, I mean, the community was scared. Of course, now everybody else wasn't. They just made fun of the situation. It was just swept under the rug, and that was it. You know, the military did come out the next morning. They did a search grid. There was stuff flying over, you know, and all that was going on the next morning, which didn't help matters any. That just made people want to come even more. But that's what happened. That's the story.
Yeah. And you can imagine, I mean, in a little town like that back then, there was nothing to do. So any excitement like that, yeah, would attract a lot of attention.
Right. Yeah. And another thing, too, you know, my grandmother and them, you know, they were poor, and they didn't go to the movies and stuff like a lot of people did. So they had no clue what a spaceman would have been or anything like that. You know, that's one reason why they were called goblins to begin with, because she thought it was some kind of goblin or something that the devil had brought forth. Because, like I said, she'd been at church that evening. She'd just gotten home from church when all this happened.
Yeah.
And so that was her first thought. These little beings are something the devil had brought.
I always like to point out with stories like this, they had nothing to gain. If anything, they lost a lot because they had to sell the farm and all that, because we were kind of taking stuff, and like they lost a lot because of it. Right.
And their dignity, actually, because, you know, people are cruel and kids are cruel. And, you know, the kids probably just gave them heck when they went back to school.
Yeah.
And, you know, because they don't talk about it. You know, my aunt and two uncles just don't talk about it. And my older uncle did, but he doesn't talk about it anymore. But he's gotten so much, you know, I think he's 81 now. So his mind is just not like it used to be. And I think he's afraid to say anything because he's afraid he'll forget something. But the two smaller ones, it just terrified them.
Yeah.
My Aunt Mary, like I said, she was 7. And she's a little bitty thing now. I can't imagine how tiny she was back then. These things were probably bigger than she was.
Yeah.
So I know it was horrifying to them.
Well, also not to mention that, you know, they're shooting up their own house. What would be the purpose of that, you know?
Exactly.
Back then, that stuff they would have had to fix themselves. It's not like they're going to pay somebody to come fix it.
Right. You know, and they couldn't afford that.
Yeah.
You know, you don't do stuff like that unless something's happening. You know, that's what the chief thought, too. You know, the chief believed them wholeheartedly. He knew his family went through something. I mean, he's seen it.
Yeah.
And, you know, he had his own experience a couple of years before that. So, you know, he believed it. And one of the police officers wholeheartedly believed it, too, because he had actually seen something that he couldn't explain 3 different times. Plus, he got to realize, and this didn't come forward till later either, that during the day that day, there was lights and sounds and stuff people were seeing all over the place.
Yeah.
During the night that night, there was lights going across the sky all the way from Clarksville, Tennessee. So it was going from Clarksville to Fort Campbell, hitting Hopkinsville, and then Kelly. So, you know, it was going across 4 different towns until it hit Kelly.
Yeah.
And, you know, people were seeing this. People were hearing these things. So, you know, even that evening, there was a couple of young boys that were out working on a bicycle or something. And they actually saw the lights and heard it. And then they heard the family carrying on, you know. So things are being heard and seen that night. But people didn't come forward till later about it because they were afraid to, because they saw how, you know, ridiculed my family was, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, made fun of and everything. So people just stayed hush-hush because I'm not going to be made that fun like they were, you know, made fun of like they were.
Right. And you did not become aware of the story until you were a little bit older. Because like I said, you weren't born yet. You weren't born until long after. And so your family really didn't talk about it.
No. This was something that was kept from us. We never heard about it. And the reason we did hear about it is by chance, I guess, because it was a Sunday afternoon and this man and woman come knocking at our door. I was 8 years old and wanting to talk to my dad. And he said, you know, I guess Mom and Dad thought, well, I guess, you know, they need to hear it anyway. They're going to find out sooner or later.
Yeah.
And sat us down, and that's when we heard the story, and it scared me to death. And the bad thing about this whole thing even at 8 years old, I already loved science fiction and I loved horror.
Yeah.
So this really ruined my whole science fiction thing because it scared me so bad at night that I would go around and shut all the doors and windows and curtains and shades, and because I was afraid these things are going to come back.
Yeah.
And look in our windows and doors.
Right.
So, this really scared me being 8 years old. So, yeah, even to this day, it's still scary. We're out at night. I'm always looking at the sky. I look out every night before I go to bed. I always open up the curtains and look out at the sky.
Yeah.
Because you don't know. But, I make sure they're closed afterwards. But, yeah, it's scary because, the reason it was so scary is because when my dad would talk about it, if you could get him to talk about it, you could tell it was something that really affected his life.
Yeah.
And the following weekend after we heard the story, he took us out to Kelly to show us where it all happened at. The well's still there. It's still there today. And then he took us, the house is gone, but he took us out back to where this craft had landed. And sure enough, it happened in 55. This was like 69. So he takes us back there, and sure enough, there is a round place on the ground, perfectly round, where nothing is growing.
Wow.
And people that lived in Kelly back then have come up to me, that of course they're way older now, but they have come to me and told me that when they were kids and teenagers, they would walk through that circle going back through there, going hunting and stuff. So there are people that remember that circle being on the ground.
Yeah.
But, the proper protocol was never taken for this. They never took samples. They never roped the area off. Of course, it was contaminated by the time all the people started coming and
Right.
going over everything.
Yeah, yeah.
But, proper protocol was never taken with this situation. And like I said, it was just swept under the rug, and they just wanted to get rid of it.
Yeah, and the police kind of separated your family and got the same story from different members. So it wasn't like they could get their story together.
Right. And Bud Ledwith, he was a reporter back then. He was the one that took them aside separately and did the drawings, the three drawings that everybody knows about.
Yeah.
He's the one that did the drawings. That's another reason why people believe it so well is because, here's guy took them one at a time, asked them, describe this thing, and they're so similar.
Yeah.
And they never changed their story. I mean, it is what it is. It's a great story.
Yeah. The thing about it is it's so credible.
Right.
Is what I was getting at. Because like you're saying, they went separately and they all come up with the very same sketch of what these creatures look like and the same details and everything, were exactly the same in individual stories. And,
right.
People that make up stories, the story always changes because they forget what they said, And so
exactly.
when you're telling the truth, the story never changes because you're
exactly.
And so it's affected your family even up until today. I heard you tell a story about your sister, even 10 years ago, had some issues at a place that she worked.
Yes, which it really shocked me because this was back when the Kelly Festival was starting up. And somebody had found out that she was a Sutton. That the people at work started kidding her about it, making fun of it, and it really upset her over it.
Yeah.
And you would think that people today wouldn't do that, but they do. They do.
Yeah.
You got to have thick skin when you got a story like this in your family. Let me tell you, because you have people that I don't know what a good word would be for them. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I just think that you have a whole family full of crazy people that, hallucinate or make up stories or,
Right.
Yeah.
This happened to an innocent family. It had no clue what was going on, what was happening to them.
Yeah.
And that was a great fear with them because they didn't know what the things were there for in the first place. Why did they come to their house? Why did they pick their house? Would they come back because they didn't get what they wanted?
Right.
That was a big fear. And I always tell people, my daddy was a small man, but he would fight a bear for what he believed in.
Yeah.
And there was two things on this earth that frightened him more than anything. One was tornadoes because he had been in one, and tornadoes terrified him. The other was the goblins.
Yeah.
Nothing else ever scared this man, but those two things frightened him to the day he died.
Yeah. And I hate when people dismiss it and try to say, well, it was, the big explanation I always heard was owls.
Right.
And I think that's ridiculous, because that's saying, I mean, you're talking about your family who hunted on that land. They knew every animal. They probably knew every tree. You know what I'm saying? Like, because they own the land. They worked the land.
Not only that, Eric, you got to think, these are boys that could probably hunt by the time they could walk practically.
Right.
So they had a 12 gauge, a 20 gauge, and a 22 rifle. You're telling me they're not hitting these things? And if they were owls, there would be owl pieces everywhere.
Right.
Any other kind of animal, or even human, if it was a human out there doing it, they were hitting them.
Yeah.
And there'd be pieces of them everywhere.
Right.
It blows my mind how people don't put that in perspective, that these guys could shoot and hit a target. And anything they were hitting, well, they were hitting these things, because when they were hitting them, they were pinging.
Yeah.
So they were hitting these things. And, it blows my mind that people think it could have been a monkey or an owl or even cats. I've heard the cat theory too. You think they'd shoot a cat? No.
Right. Right. And also, why would a whole group of animals like that be trying to get in the house and attacking and like...
Right. All night long.
Yeah. Yeah. And, they were more connected to nature than we are today, for sure. Working the land and working outside and hunting for their food and all that. And so, yeah. And I think one of the things is that for some people to believe in anything paranormal, whether it be, creatures or ghosts or anything, I think it scares them. And because they want everything in little boxes that make sense in their life, and anything outside of that, well, I can't handle that, And so it just scares them. So they dismiss it and try to, make excuses and make fun of people because of their own insecurities. Right.
And another thing too, you got to realize we live in a Bible Belt here.
Right.
And sometimes it can get really bad. For an example, one year I was doing the fair there in Hopkinsville, and I had a booth set up. And I actually had these teenagers, these probably 15, 16, 17-year-olds come up to my booth and tell me that I did not believe in God because I believed in aliens.
Oh, wow.
I told them, I said, that's not true.
Yeah.
That's not true at all. I wholeheartedly believe in God. He's the one that made these aliens out here, people.
Right.
You may not want to believe that, but he supposed to have made everything. So, but you got people that like you said, live in a box. They do not want to believe there's anything on this earth besides us.
Right.
We are it. There is no other beings out here. So, and they wholeheartedly believe that.
And to me, there's millions of planets, so why would we be the only ones?
Oh my gosh, the solar system is massive.
Yeah.
And you've got to be just dense in the head. I'm sorry, but dense in the head to believe we are the only living being.
Yeah.
That's crazy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I know with a lot of people who especially have close encounters like that, has your family ever experienced any other paranormal activity or any other UFO weird?
Let me tell you something. I just found out here recently that my Uncle JC actually made the statement that if he'd ever seen anything like that again, he would never mention it.
Yeah.
Because of what they went through with this story.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, my Uncle JC was a Korean war vet. Okay? And these little beings, 3.5 foot tall beings, scared him more than what he went through in the war. That's telling you something there.
Because you learned of the story, of course, from your family, and you've kind of been tasked with being the torchbearer to carry it on. What other kind of experience have you had throughout your life as far as paranormal?
Oh, gosh. You got time? Because I've got one great story that people just blows their mind when they hear this. Back before we moved to Brandenburg, we lived in Princeton, Kentucky. We had a little 32-acre farm there. I want to shoot myself every day for giving it up. But anyway, we lived there several years, never had an issue whatsoever. Now, this was 32 acres. Most of it was wood, thick wood. We loved it that way. So we had a little metaphysical shop in Princeton. And we actually had a tarot reader. We had a person that did Reiki. And we had a person that could talk to dead people. Now, I know people are probably laughing their heads off right now. But anyway, one night, the little girl that talked to dead people, we were good friends, and she come and spent the night with us, and she was in the guest room. And the next morning, she told me, she said, I had an Indian kept coming to my room last night. I said, really? She said, yes. She said, it kept coming to the room. So she said, I finally got up and followed it. Followed him. And she said, I followed him into the dining area, and we had huge windows in this house, huge windows. And she says, I looked out the backyard, and there was like 50 Indians back there.
Wow.
I'm like, really? She says, yeah. Well, I got cold chills right now just thinking about this. And so we get to the shop, and I tell my Reiki person and my tarot person, what she tells them what just happened. Like, oh, okay. So anyway, it's not, I don't know, a week or two later, my husband and I are in bed, and our bedroom's on the top floor, and we have this big deck out the back with French doors. And like I said, our land was out. We didn't have no neighbors, and it was just thick woods. And so at night, I didn't shut the shades on the doors. We just left them open. Yeah. You couldn't get to the deck because there was no stairs or nothing to it. So you couldn't get to the deck from the ground. And it was way high. So never worried us.
Right.
Well, we're laying there in bed, and all of a sudden, bam, something hits the glass. We're thinking, okay, maybe it was a bat, maybe or something. So my husband gets up and looks out there. There's nothing there, nothing on the deck, nothing on the ground. Okay, so he gets back in bed. It ain't 2 minutes later, bam, hits again. And we're like, what the heck? So I take my flashlight and I take it and I look. I'm expecting to see a big old Bigfoot looking over our deck or something, Well, nothing there. I don't see nothing laying on the deck. I put my flashlight down. It ain't a couple minutes later, bam, third time, something hits that glass. I look at my husband, he looks at me, and I'm like, no more. I just cover my head up, and I try to go to sleep the rest of the night. Next morning, get up, go out there, and look, there's nothing. So we're thinking, what the heck? No nuts, nothing on the deck. So we let it go. Well, it ain't a week or two later. My husband has to get up and go to work. He usually left at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'd get up with him, get him off, and I go lay back down because we didn't open up the shop for 12. Metaphysical people don't come out till later in the day.
Right.
Anyway, so I go back to bed and usually sleep for another hour and a half. Well, we have cats, so my cats jumped into bed with me. I'm laying there, and all of a sudden, boy, there is a tap, tap, tap on that glass on the French door. I look, there ain't nothing there. The cats, their ears are all standing straight up. They're all looking toward that door, and they are not taking their eyes off of it. I'm like, I get my butt up, I get ready, and I head on down to the shop. I get out of there. So when my people come in that day, I tell them what happened. And I tell them about the couple of weeks before about something getting hit against the glass then. They're like, oh, we need to come out and look at your land and check it out, see what's going on. So they come out, all three of them, they go walking around, and they're sensing this stuff and saying that, well, your land is angry. And one of them says something to do with fire. And the little girl that sees the dead people, she keeps seeing a woman. So anyway, they tell me, says, well, we need to come out here and bless your land. We need to settle your land back down. It's gotten angry for some reason. I said, okay, you come out here and do what you want to. I don't care.
Yeah.
So anyway, they come out during the weekend and they bring their sage and all their other little stuff, and they actually give blood. I mean, they do the whole 9 yards on this. And did you know what? We didn't have any more problems after that.
Wow.
Well, I find out a few days after all this, we do all this ceremony stuff, the Trail of Tears actually went through that land. And I'm like, oh, well, this makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And on top of that, when we bought the land, of course, we walked it. There's these three huge mounds back in the woods, perfectly round, beautiful mounds. You know, grass is growing on them, big trees growing out of them. I mean, and it got us wondering, could these be burial mounds?
Yeah.
You know, and after I found out Trail of Tears went through it, I mean, it all makes perfect sense. But like I said, after they came out and did that little ceremony, we had no more problems. Now, ain't that odd?
Yeah. Yeah. And for everybody to know, there's actually a Trail of Tears park in Hopkinsville. And so,
yes.
it very much ran through that whole area.
Yes, it did. It ran through Princeton. Yeah, they have a little monument down at the park in Princeton where it ran through there. And apparently it came out our area too and walked through there. So, you know, it made perfect sense. You know, her seeing the Indians.
Yeah.
All of it made perfect sense after we found out. So, amazing stuff.
Yeah. So your grandmother sold off the farm. Whatever happened to all the land?
Well, it's actually, I think, let me think, there's like 4 different families. I mean, you know, they sold them off in, you know, little lots.
Yeah.
The part that the well is on and the house was on and where the landing happened actually is owned by the same person. They bought that whole strip down through there. So one person owns all that happened on it.
Yeah.
And the other 3 sections are 3 sections where other families live. But they won't let you on it. You can't get back there. They've just had so many people harass them over the years.
Yeah.
Banging on their door in the middle of the night, wanting to see where the aliens landed. You know,
Wow.
so they just don't let anybody back there anymore. Or ever, really, ever.
Yeah.
We've been lucky enough to get back there a couple of times. They've let us, but that's it.
Yeah, I could see people trespassing and sneaking on the property, and it's yeah, we've had issues with that just buying the 200-year-old house.
I bet.
We've had to put a big sign out in the driveway when we're not there that blocks the driveway. Because we've had people pull up there and get out and look around the house and, like, you know, privately owned. This is not public property. Like, we're going to allow people in, you know, for history and paranormal stuff, but, you know, you just got to wait. You know,
right.
So I couldn't even imagine with a story like that and the, you know, the legend like that of people coming onto the property and bugging them. I don't know what it is with people. They think just because of stories, they hear stories that they have permission to do things like that. And,
right. Well, they've let all that in the back behind the house grow up. I mean, it's just full of trees and brush and really, really thick.
Yeah.
So you really can't get back in. You can get back in there and they'd never see you because they can't see you from their house because of all the woods. But, you know, you don't know really where the area is unless you go back in there and figure it out.
Yeah.
So
I know in the past few years, the only person that I've seen that's done really kind of an in-depth deep dive into it was Ben Hansen when he had his show.
Yeah, we did that show. Yeah, we snuck back there that day. We sure did. He figured out where it was.
Yeah.
But sure enough, there's an area back there that stuff still isn't growing very well as the rest of the forest. And you know, he took a Geiger counter and he was able to get readings and metal detector and, you know, so it was kind of exciting.
Yeah, I'm surprised because, like, a lot of those cases, the military came back and investigated when J. Allen Hynek the scientist, they had him
Right.
investigating a lot of those. I'm surprised that wasn't one of the things they had him investigate. He's the one that came up with the swamp gas explanation for the government. And yeah, I'm surprised he didn't. That was, with it being such a dominant experience,
Right.
they didn't put more investigation into it.
And, I've heard two different stories. I've heard he didn't like it, and I've heard that he did like the story. So, I'm not really sure what he believed or how he believed. I don't.
Yeah, he came out later and said that all the things he had seen, he believed, but for the government reports, he had to put things like swamp gas and weather balloons and stuff, to gaslight people like our government's done with the UFO stuff.
They didn't want him to say it was UFOs. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it was something from another world.
Right. Right.
No, we can't have aliens here. No.
Yeah. So you've written a few books about the incident and about UFOs and that subject, and they're available on Amazon, I know.
Yes, you can get them if you get them through my Etsy shop. I think they're cheaper actually, and I will sign them for you also.
Yeah, I bought a copy. And you signed it for me.
Yes.
So
yes.
But yeah, the Kelly Green Men, Alien Legacy Revisited. You have Alien Legacy and A Strange New World.
Yes, I've actually talked to my husband, and I'm actually thinking about, once I sell out of all these books I've got right now, I'm thinking about doing one book and just getting rid of the two.
Yeah.
And just redoing the whole thing and just making one book instead of, like I said, having the two. I think it'd be much better, and I put more into them because I know some more stuff now.
Yeah.
And, just start again with another book. But that'll be a while yet.
Yeah.
Because I got to get myself down, make myself write it and everything. Oh, you got to be in the mood to write.
Yeah. I've been working on a book for a year and a half now, almost 2 years, and it's about half done. Yeah, it's about half done. I have ADD too, so that doesn't help. So
oh no,
yeah, to force myself to sit on it right. But I saw where you did a convention earlier this year in Texas, I believe.
Oh, that was the MUFON Symposium.
Yeah, I hope that you have those printed goblins at the convention next year. I want one of those.
Yes, we are going to. Yeah. People, absolutely love them. I sell them constantly off my Etsy shop.
Yeah, I had to go order one for sure.
They're cute as could be, but it took us a while to perfect the whole thing and learn how to run a 3D printer, but we finally got it down.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we're the only people that have all three. We have all three of the drawings.
Yeah.
So I was able to find somebody that could do us a file. It's called an STL file. And we were able to get that done so we could do all three. So, yeah, we're pretty proud of them.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go order. I'm going to have to go order me one. I love things like that. And just to put put in my office on the bookshelves and stuff. But I'll put all your links in the show notes so people can go check out your books and your Etsy shop. And like you said, if you order the books from her Etsy shop, she gets all the money. None of it goes to corporate Amazon, which is making plenty of money. But
right, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So
what Etsy don't take too, Etsy gets their part. Believe me.
Yeah, but you can also get it personalized and signed by Geraldine.
Exactly.
And and you got anything coming up we got spooky season coming up? You got any other conventions or anything you're doing this year?
Yeah, I'm doing Cumberland Con in October. I've got another one. I forget what it's called. I'm doing in Louisville. Terrible. I forgot what it's called. But it's in Louisville. I've got something I'm doing in Russell. I'm always getting called to do stuff for libraries and centers and stuff. I even do nursing homes, believe it or not. Yes, I think it's kind of sweet.
Yeah,
I mean, you'd be amazed at the little people at nursing homes that love to be talked to and hear stuff like this.
Oh yeah, something different.
And, I've done schools. Usually, if somebody asks me, I will do it for them. That's just me. I just got asked the other day, somebody called me to do one in Madisonville, which I've done Madisonville 3 times already, but they want me to come back and do another one.
Yeah.
People love the story. They just love to hear it. And they'll come back and come back and come back. And, I don't know how many conventions I've done where people have come up to me and said, "You're the reason I'm at this convention." I'm like, oh my goodness, that makes you feel so good when people tell you that.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I'm going to do some stuff like that at the Night House. So I'd love to have you out there and have people come.
Definitely. I would love to come there. I would love to come to that. Yes, that house.
Yeah, I would definitely be seeing you with the Goblin Con stuff because I think she wants me to be part of that as well to help plan it and all that stuff. So
right.
But yeah, I'd love to have you out and people stay tuned for that. And also stay tuned for all the info for the Goblin Con stuff next year because that's going to be a really fun convention in Hopkinsville, all about UFOs and the paranormal. And I will definitely be there as well. So, but thank you for coming on today, Geraldine, and talking about your family story. And I've been fascinated by it for a long time, so it's awesome to get to talk to you about it.
Well, thank you. And like I say, any day you can talk about the Green Man is a good day.
Right.
Right.
All right, everybody. Y'all stay safe out there. Have a good day. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to The Unseen Paranormal. Join me next Wednesday with a brand new guest. And please rate, review, share, and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're listening right now. This helps more people discover the show. You can connect with me over on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or join us in the Unseen Paranormal Lounge group on Facebook. Until next time, remember, some of the scariest things are unseen. You have come to the end of the line.